So, have you ever had the issue of trying to just get motivated to do anything and then having to have the wherewithal to stay motivated with whatever you're trying to do in life, goals, fitness, wellness, your relationships, however that is? That's today's topic. My name is CJ. This is Evolve Strong with CJ, and I help you lose 10 pounds and 5 inches in 28 days. And today, I have an amazing individual who, number one, has become a very close friend of mine. And number two is basically a world-renowned psychologist that has dedicated his life to exactly what we're talking about today. And I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Edgar Hernandez, who is a board-certified adult psychiatrist who is an advocate for mental health, emerging therapies, and specifically in therapies using fitness and wellness. And then he resides in Austin, Texas, and has been practicing for well over a decade. Dr. Hernandez, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited here to talk to you about, just general topics, right? Whether it's wellness, fitness, how to stay motivated, disciplined, right? With the goals that patients and people just have in general. And I apologize if I go back between people and patients. It's just, and it's ingrained in my head, to call people patients. But yeah, we can start at the beginning. So let's do it.
Awesome, man. So tell us a little bit about you. Like what is your fitness passion? What is the reason that you're passionate about wellness and fitness? Like, can you give some background with that?
Absolutely. So on a personal note, throughout high school and college, let's say, I was very active, very physically active, and enjoyed doing a lot of track, cross country, things like that. So I was always fit, able to do the things that I wanted to do in terms of from a fitness wellness standpoint. Then college, medical school, residency came about, and I felt like I became very unhealthy because fitness and exercise did not become my priority, right? And looking back, I can recognize that consciously I made that decision to put that in the back burner because I wanted to focus on accomplishing my goal, right? Of, becoming a psychiatrist and everything that entailed to do that, right? And horrible sleep, right? Being on call, staying up too late, and so forth. And I think there was a turning point in my life where I was told that I had high blood pressure, and it runs in my family. So, genetics, there's a very clear component there, but I wasn't doing anything about it myself. So I started this journey again with eating healthier, just exercising on a more regular basis, improving my sleep, right? Which it's imperative in any wellness or fitness goals. And suddenly I took ownership of that responsibility. And most importantly, I made it a priority, right? And, we always talk about life and work balance. And, part of that life balance, that work-life balance is feeling healthy and feeling the best version of yourself. And today, as a 44-year-old man, I can tell you that I'm the healthiest, the happiest that I've been in a really long time. And I can tell you that in the last 4 or 5 years since I started this journey for myself, it is, and I accounted a lot to the fact of me focusing very, very aware and confidently on fitness and wellness. So that's why this is very important to me as I talk to my patients about their mental health issues. I don't talk about fitness and wellness in general terms like, oh, it's good for your health, it's good for your physical and emotional health. I actually prescribe it, right? Because I think when you talk about a part of exercise as part of your treatment plan, it carries a different type of weight than when you just tell somebody else, like, you should be exercising or walking more or eating healthier. Well, we all know that, right? It's part of our getting better and feeling better. But sometimes some patients, to your point earlier about motivation, because the motivation does not exist, initially at least, when you kind of dig into maybe the word discipline, right? More into I'm asking you to do this as part of your treatment plan. Patients sometimes can hear that more easily than when I say, do this just because I know it's going to help you. And then that's where that maybe lack of self-confidence occurs and say, well, I can't fit it in because I'm not feeling well. And then this guy's asking me to work out, you know, 2-3 times a week. But I don't have the energy or the motivation to do it. So there is that dichotomy between that maybe focusing more as a treatment discipline perspective initially, because then over time, guess what? You start feeling better. You actually are enjoying what you're doing. You're finding your niche in fitness, and then you become more motivated to do it. So
what I found, Dr. Hernandez, is that motivation just doesn't happen by sitting around. You actually have to take action in order for motivation to be sustainable within the system. Do you find this also something within your practice?
absolutely. You know, a lot of people, when we talk about motivation, are in this very pre-contemplative or contemplative stage, right? Where they know that they should be doing something. Maybe they feel guilty about doing it. Maybe sometimes patients or people feel selfish that they need to focus on self, and that maybe means taking you away from other people. So a lot of people do get stuck in those stages. And I think part of the motivation, as an example or as a technique in my practice, is how can we move patients from that contemplative stage to actually prepare, right? Which is you're committed to make the change and then actually do the action, right? Which is carrying out the behavior. So it is more common, CJ, than not, where people just get stuck in that mindset. And it's what can we do as, you know, advocates of fitness and wellness, right? Obviously, you and your as a professional in the area, how can we get people to move from just thinking that this is a good idea because we may need it or we do need it for whatever reasons, to, hey, actually, let's act upon it and actually start doing it.
Sure. So, Dr. Hernandez, I think a lot of the individuals that listen to this show and a lot of my clients who are middle-aged professionals looking to improve themselves physically, I think, like when I paraphrase your situation where you were a young student and all of a sudden you got stuck in this insanity cycle of taking care of your education, taking care of others, taking care of everything else other than yourself physically and mentally. They get stuck in this insanity cycle. And a lot of these individuals, like you, were taking care of their families, their companies, and then they lose it themselves. So, but then you found out you had like this paradigm shift of high blood pressure. You started knowing that you started feeling like poop, and you needed to do something about it. When you got to that point, and now we're at this point where you're talking about where you know you need to do something, how does an individual go from that knowing they have to do something, they've planned it out, to that next step? How did you do it? And how do you prepare your clients, patients to do? I mean, what do you do? I mean, what do you tell them? How do you get them motivated to just jump?
So I think it's important to recognize in not only in self, right, as in the example that I provided, but in others, whether self-confidence and self-assurance is there, right? Some people feel intimidated, scared by going to a gym, right? Because you see these other folks who are way more advanced and obviously, you know, lifting really heavy or running really, really fast. And that can be taxing for some people just to get to that notion that they may encounter others that are not in the same spot that they are. But the reality is you start somewhere, right? And when that self-confidence or that self-assurance is present, I think that that's actually the key to actually creating that change process in an individual, right? One of the key things that I imagine that you talk with your clients, because when I've used personal trainers myself, they've spoken to me about this, is aligning where my motivation is with the goals that I want to achieve, right? And I think that's also very important because you must have attainable goals, right? The idea that you're going to go from 0 to 100 in a span of a month, most likely it's not going to happen, and you're going to put yourself at a risk of failing and feeling like a failure, right? So it's also ways to align the goals that the individual has, but with their level of motivation. But I think that the key thing is that people have the solutions and the strategies within themselves, right? I think part of what we do in this therapeutic alliance, in my case, and also in your case as a fitness expert, is to not only recognize that and approach that individual from that perspective, to allow themselves to get to that point where they recognize, actually, I can do this and I should be doing this because X, Y, and Z, right? And to your point about competing, other competing things in life, right? The reality is that there's always going to be something that you feel will take a priority of, right? Work being one, family obviously being one, being in a relationship being another one, and things like that. But sometimes, there are strategies that you can do to make exercise either more fun or more attainable. Working, with a friend, working out with a friend, working out with, in a group setting, right? If you're somebody that enjoys those classes, right? Because maybe you'll find that the energy that these other folks are bringing to that environment is you kind of feed off of that, right? Obviously for me, one of the changes that I did, because I had never truthfully done it, was working with a personal trainer. And I think, and that's honestly where I found the most benefit for myself, because I had that one-to-one where I could build that rapport with this individual who actually, again, understood where I was, understood my hesitations, my fears. But then when we flip the coin and start thinking about, like, well, what were the goals that I wanted to achieve? What did I wanted to get? That's where I thought that the change actually happened for me, because my personal trainer met me where I was. And when he started noticing my improvement over time, those goals changed, right? And that's the beautiful thing about life, right? That nothing has to be constant. There's always room for change, and change is very, very good. So even if you start with a let's say a lower, more conservative goal for fitness or wellness, once you achieve that and you feel motivated because you actually got what you wanted from achieving that goal, you change it to a different one, and the process continues. And that transformation that someone experiences and sees is very powerful. So I think that's where the magic happens.
Where I just got three different very strong points from you, Dr. Hernandez, and paraphrasing this. What I find is individuals who need to lose 20, 30, 100 pounds, it's like trying to, it's overwhelming to them. And a lot of times they just can't take that next step because of the overwhelm. So what I heard you just say is, in the planning process to become motivated, to take that next step, is to reassess your goals and make them realistic and start simply. And a lot of times I say, a lot of people don't need me. They don't even need a gym. What they need is a good pair of walking shoes and a place to walk, and a good YouTube and a living room, right? And then second thing, what I heard is that to seek knowledge, find a good support network, whether it be a friend, whether it be someone like yourself or someone like I. And then number three, what I also heard you say is get the mentality in your head that it's okay to take care of you. Because if you're not cared for, you're not going to take care of family, friends, companies. You're not going to take care of anybody else. Am I sound in those three little points that in regards to motivation and getting started?
Absolutely. And I think that the last one, the point three that you made, is in my view, not only personally but professionally, I think that that's the one of the biggest challenges. I think people feel guilty and selfish that they want to focus on their own health, because that means taking you away from other things, right? But the reality is, to your point, if you're not emotionally, physically well, all these other things that are also important to you to accomplish are not going to be, they're not going to happen easily, or they're not going to happen at all, because the self, which is the common denominator in all these other areas of life, is not doing well. So I think that when you can have a little bit of a breakthrough through that guilt and through that feeling selfish about doing this, I think that that's where patients tend to feel more open to the idea that it is okay to take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it is, away from family and friends, in order to be able to take care of them of themselves. Actually, that number just prompted something in my head. There was actually, and this is for your listeners, there is a research study, multiple actually, that have been done, but they did a review and a meta-analysis recently where it demonstrated that you only need about 45 minutes of moderate exercise 3 times a week in order to exert not only both the physical health that and wellness that we all want, but the emotional, mental health benefits. So if you think about it, 45 minutes 3 times a week, it's about 150 minutes of moderate exercise, whatever form that means, right? If you like to run. If you like yoga, do yoga. If you like to lift, CrossFit, whatever it is, just move. But we underestimate the value of walking, because walking in itself is a very powerful treatment tool as well, that could be considered exercise, as long as there's a little bit of an increase in heart rate. Well, you know this, but again, sitting is the new smoking. We need to move. We need to move.
I love that. Dr. Hernandez, what I would like to do, because we've had 3 really good points, and I don't like overwhelming our group. What I would like to do is invite you back for at least 2 subsequent sessions to actually talk about our next points. Once we get motivated, how do we stay motivated? And then after that, once we've become monotonous, then how do we sustain long-term results? Would you be willing to join me another 2 sessions? We'll schedule it for our listeners. Would you be willing to do that, sir?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think
Right.
part of that motivation, and I think you hit it at the head of the nail, CJ, is that the process never ends,
Yes.
right? Well, we can very conceptualize things in stages, even that maintenance phase, right? Once the action happened and you're doing it and you're feeling better and you're trying to sustain it, even in that maintenance phase, people still struggle, right, to keep it going, because either A, they achieve the desirable goal, or B, other competing things in life happens, or C, you start getting bored, right? Honestly, you start getting bored with the same stuff, and I think that ongoing reevaluation of where things are, whether it's new goals, maybe you're recovering from something and you want to just feel healthier, whatever it is, that is an ongoing process, and that's an ongoing process that will allow motivation to continue. So I'd be
I'd love
more
for
than
our
happy
next
to have.
sessions to dive deep into that. Would that be all
No,
right?
absolutely happy to
Awesome.
come
Dr.
back and
Hernandez,
talk through it
do
more.
me a favor. I'm going to, within the details of this, I'm going to let individuals know how they can get in touch with you and your team, how they can do some more research with you, because you are an amazing individual that is so knowledgeable. And I think individuals would, if they want to follow up, would you be willing to, take some questions via email, or if you want them to go through me and things with that? Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like to any of your listeners, if you're on LinkedIn, you can search me on LinkedIn. I'm there for sure. If they have very specific questions, maybe we can compile them, and then at our next meetup, we can answer some of your listeners' questions as well. That way, everybody can get the answers to the questions that maybe they had as well, but they just didn't ask.
Awesome. Dr. Edgar Hernandez, thank you so very much for being with us today. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to our next two, all right?
Absolutely. I love this.
Again,
Thank you so much for having me over.
Awesome, guys. Hey, listen up. 505-591-4700. 505-591-4700. That is a text or a landline. If you need to listen to chime in, please share this with individuals that you know. We'd love to expand our reach. And again, from my heart to yours, remember, start strong, stay strong, always be evolve strong. Thank you, Dr. Hernandez.
My pleasure. Thank you.